The RAC Tourist Trophy was first run on the Isle of Man in 1905, when the car to beat was nothing less than a Rolls-Royce. The Honourable Charles Royce was the 1906 winner at an average speed of almost 40 miles an hour. Even in its early days, the magic of the event captured the imagination. The magic of unmetalled public roads was less appealing. So post-war, it was on to the race circuits and epic battles like the 1961 Goodwood race between Stirling Moss and Roy Salvadori. The name of the event came about because of the RAC's desire to promote the road-going car as a safe and economical everyday machine. By Silverstone 1985, that principle seemed to be long forgotten. In that year's race, a downpour turned Woodcote into a waterfall, and the catch fencing was left with an awful lot to catch. But for the Tourist Trophy Silverstone 1988, the weather would be mercifully dry. Because here in round 10 of the European Touring Car Championship, the title can be decided. Roberto Ravaglia of Italy, the world champion of 1987, and heading the table in his quest for his third consecutive European crown. He drives for the Schnitzer Works BMW team. He scored overall success in the only other British round of the championship at Donington in April. Then victory in the Prestige round at Spa consolidated his championship lead. The only man who can catch him is Belgium's Pierre Dieudonné, teammate of Britain's Steve Soper. Soper we know all about, not so much from his European exploits, but from his two appearances in the British Touring Car Championship, in which he's hounded the fastest man in the series, Andy Rouse. Soper beat him at Thruxton, then narrowly gave second best to Rouse at Brands Hatch. Outside Britain, Andy Rouse's main activity has been in the French Championship, teamed with Alain Ferté, and that's the partnership for Silverstone. But Rouse's task here is to show the real strength of British saloon car talent, because for the Tourist Trophy, there's not only the best drivers in Europe, but the best in the world. And that especially means the Australian Dick Johnson, who's brought across his super-fast Ford Sierra Cosworth that won the Australian Touring Car Championship in overwhelming fashion this season. From the German Touring Car Championship, Armin Hahn in the Wolf Sierra. But it's not all Fords in the top category, because giving a long-awaited run-out to the Holden Commodore is the hero of British motorsport, Tom Walkinshaw.
Do we really want to go through with this?
The man who set up the Jaguar success at Le Mans in partnership with Jeff Allen. Getting a lot of attention, not always for reasons of motorsport, Mark Thatcher driving for the Bugatti BMW team. A massive grid of 42 cars stretching way back round Woodcote and leaving even the British Championship leader Frank Sittner and teammate Mike Smith only a distant view of the front row.
You'll probably get a cab to the start line from here. It is a bit of a long way back.
A long way back, but facing a very long race of 105 laps, a distance of over 311 miles, with all the uncertainties of pit stops and driver changes making the initial grid positions of little importance. The field sets off behind the pace car, a very delicate operation getting a field of this size away cleanly. We're on board with Andy Rouse behind the aggressively weaving Sierra Cosworth of Steve Soper. Soper and Dieudonné had qualified second, but the qualifying time that gave Dick Johnson pole position was almost half a second quicker than Soper and had really demoralised the other front runners. Those included Jonathan Palmer, partnering Guy Edwards in the second caliber Cosworth, just going out of the shot there, followed by the Walkinshaw Holden and the Nissan of Wyn Percy. The Class 1 at the front of the field dominated by Fords, no less than 17 RS 500s. Class 2 exclusively BMWs, leading qualifier there, Mark Thatcher's Bugatti teammate Jacques Lafitte. With Rouse down to Woodcote on the end of the pace lap, with the Swiss-prepared Eggenberger Fords of Klaus Ludwig on our right, Steve Soper directly ahead. But leading the pack, the similar car of Dick Johnson, determined to prove that Australia leads the sport of touring car racing, and nobody doubted that he lacked either the ability or the machinery. Armin Hahn had qualified fifth, Gianfranco Brancatelli in the third of the Eggenberger Fords had qualified sixth. Also in the field, other familiar runners from the British Championship, like Rob Gravitt, Lawrence Bristow, Jerry Marney and Graham Good. But waiting in the pit lane to start at the back of the field would be the Schnitzer BMW of Alfred Hager, and that would be a sizable disadvantage in a field of this size, especially when Dick Johnson is about to find the acceleration to leave even his Ford RS 500 rivals right back on their heels. Streaming down to Copse, away from the pace car, Dick Johnson with a very positive advantage over Soper. Ludwig third, Armin Hahn forces his way past Rouse and into fourth. Even less than halfway round the first lap, Johnson was looking uncatchable. He led from Soper, Ludwig, Hahn, Rouse. Brancatelli and Gravett were battling for sixth. The Nissan of Wyn Percy, the first non-Ford, just ahead of Walkinshaw's Holden. Hanger straight for the first time. Dick Johnson, a multiple Australian touring car champion. He's already wrapped up the title once again this year, and he's obviously got a superbly prepared car with Australia's top saloon car race at Bathurst just a few weeks away. Johnson, a former Bathurst winner himself, but denied by the Eggenberger Fords last year, and it seems that he's come to Silverstone bent on revenge in what is our premier saloon car event. One of the men to beat him at Bathurst last year, Steve Soper, we're on board with a second-place man, now becoming third as Klaus Ludwig gets past at Abbey. So in the distance, it's Johnson entering the Woodcote complex for the first time. Then right ahead, the second-place man, Ludwig. We're with Soper in third, and behind us, Armin Hahn fourth, and Andy Rouse fifth. Hahn gets a little out of shape exiting the complex, and Rouse is putting on the pressure. Copse corner, Johnson is through. Here are the teammates, Ludwig and Soper, and the battlers for fourth, Hahn and Rouse. From first to sixth and beyond, the best touring car racers in the world, and Rouse challenging Hahn was the British Championship against the German Championship, and it seemed that Rouse held the advantage. Out of the race, though, the Sierra of Thierry Tassin with a broken differential. As ever, the Toyotas hard at it in Class 3, Chris Hodgetts perhaps trying a little too hard for such an early stage of a long-distance race. But on board with Rouse, right with Armin Hahn, and looking for a way past at Club Corner and Abbey Curve. Down to the bridge and Woodcote, Rouse in the RS 500 that has scarcely missed a beat during the British Championship season against Hahn's Wolf Sierra that scored some good results in Germany but has also proved unreliable and is handling none too well here. This then the battle for fourth and fifth. Up ahead, the Eggenberger Fords, not to mention Dick Johnson, they're beginning to pull away. Rouse knows he must get past. Round Maggots and up to Beckett's, Rouse fifth, chasing Armin Hahn fourth. Then behind it's Rob Gravett and Jonathan Palmer before Tom Walkinshaw's Holden. Fords in the first 7 places, and Rouse with the power down on Hanger Straight with a chance to catch Hahn coming into Stirling. Hahn's fourth place survives just one more corner as Rouse outbreaks his man at Club. Rouse through then into fourth, and now with his sights set on the 2 Eggenberger Fords in front. The leader Dick Johnson goes through, then Ludwig in second, Soper in third. One Ford not having such a good time, the number 6 car of Romeo Prometheus into the pits, apparently with little urgency, but we're still in just the opening laps of this 311-mile race. Italian team, Italian drivers. The problem here apparently a loss of brake fluid, but pretty soon they be back out causing problems of a different kind. Meanwhile, Rouse is right with Soper in the battle for third and fourth place. Remember the power advantage that Rouse had over Soper in the Brands Hatch British Championship round. He still has it here, but an attack on the outside approaching the Woodcote complex, perhaps a little ambitious. Soper, outright winner of the European Championship rounds at Monza, Estoril, Jarama, Dijon and Nürburgring. But it's Rouse, winner of 8 British Championship rounds this season, who has the pace here. And they're already up with back markers. This is the kind of racing that the big crowd at the Birmingham Super Prix were denied. Problems with the Formula 3000 race there meant there was no time left to run the British Championship round. Rouse and Soper, though, making up for it in this tourist trophy. And Rouse now using all his power down the hanger straight to get in position to pass Soper at Stowe. Ahead of them, second place Klaus Ludwig with lights blazing. But Rouse in position to go through to take third, which gives us an order of Johnson from Ludwig, Rouse, Soper and Hahn. Well, that was after 10 laps, and now it's down to Soper to do the chasing. Up ahead of this duo, Johnson hadn't managed to open more than a couple of seconds on Klaus Ludwig, but the field is about to be brought tightly back together by the first appearance of the pace car. In the gravel trap at Beckett's, Romeo Prometheus, who we've just seen in the pits with a brake problem, is clearly indicating that it's now a steering failure. Anyway, the Sierra is deemed to be in a dangerous position. The yellow flags indicate the appearance of the pace car, controlling the race while the offending car is moved. Chance to check the positions after 14 laps and the driver combinations which would soon be reflected in the first pit stops. Ford Sierra Cosworths filling all those top 6 positions. The leaders mixed up with the back markers in the pace lap order, so when the pace car peels away, it's a great chance for someone bold and brave to make use of the traffic and get back up the order. And that man, clearly, is Steve Soper. Soper charging down the inside of the pit straight, immediately taking third place back from Andy Rouse. The leader, Dick Johnson, stays in front round Copse. Behind, it's Ludwig, Soper, and then Rouse. The first 4 then closely bunched again, but Johnson with a clear run to reopen the gap on the Eggenberger Fords. Behind them, Rouse and Rob Gravitt running an excellent 5th. In the body of the field, Jerry Marney locks up on the outside of Carl Jones. Then come the Class 2 BMWs, their race being led at this stage by Oliver Gruard, but Alfred Hager was also carving his way through the field. Stowe, lap 15, Dick Johnson having comfortably picked up a new lap record at an average speed of 110.68 miles an hour. Without doubt, the fiercest scrap in among the BMWs was this one, Will Hoy in front of Eric van der Poel, 4th and 5th respectively in Class 2. Van der Poel looking for a way past at the Woodcote complex. There was never much more than this in it until the pit stops at half distance. Joining in down the pit straight, the Ford of Gianfranco Brancatelli, lying 6th overall behind Bristow and Rouse. Roberto Ravaglia would make a decision at half distance which of the works BMWs to drive. The number 56 car of Alfred Hager was best placed, 3rd in class and climbing. Down through the gearbox and into Woodcote with Frank Sittner, the British Championship leader, 20th overall. And this is what life is like in Class 2. The BMW of Milos Bickel is the car that nearly loses it, but Sittner is concentrating on his own more evenly paced race. Others, though, were having to race very hard at the front of the field. Rouse is up with Soper again and prepared to use all his muscle to get by for the 2nd time at Stowe. Rouse has the line and makes 3rd place his own at Club Corner. The order then with pit stops looming. Johnson, Ludwig, Rouse, Soper, Gravitt and Brancatelli with Jonathan Palmer 7th and Armin Hahn 8th. Wyn Percy the first non-Sierra in 9th, and the other Class 1 challenger to Ford, Tom Walkinshaw's Holden, off the pace in 14th and coming into the pits. Walkinshaw makes way for Jeff Allen, while on the pit wall, Alan Grice watches his compatriot Dick Johnson blast past in the lead. Grice teamed once again with Wyn Percy for Nissan. The pursuers, Ludwig, Rouse and Soper. Rouse shortly to hand over to Frenchman Alain Ferté. And Rouse right with Klaus Ludwig at Beckett's and determined to take second. Rouse seemingly able to comfortably match the performance of the Eggenberger runners. On the Hanger Straight, it will be the usual drag race, and Rouse once again taking an uncompromising line inside at Stowe. Rouse into second then, behind Johnson. 30 laps gone, and the Nissan into the pits. Wyn Percy remains in the car. Teammate Alan Grice, naturally laid back, but not quite this laid back. The Nissan has a problem, jammed into third gear. It's a problem that can't be solved, and the team that mounted such a great challenge to Rouse at Donington earlier this season is out of the race. Also with fundamental problems, Graham Good. The Sierra lost a wheel nut, and that sheared off the drive pegs. His chances are over.
You won't get it in. You won't get it in.
Can you tighten those up just to tell off?
While all that was going on, the leader Dick Johnson comes into the pits, allowing Andy Rouse to take over the race lead. Johnson due to hand over to his teammate Tasmanian John Bowe. The first part of Johnson's mission was comfortably achieved. He'd proved, in particular to the Eggenberger Fords, exactly who was the quickest man in the sport. But now the car is being delayed by a fuel feed problem, and when it resumes, it would be in a lowly 11th place. But Dick Johnson, a larger-than-life character of the kind that Australian motorsport has a habit of producing, is very happy with his progress so far.
The car's fine, it's just you have a fair bit of trouble with slow traffic, and somebody dropped a heap of oil coming up before you come up under the bridge there. I was driven all the way around on line. It sort of made it pretty difficult for a couple of laps, but other than that, it's fine.
Were you surprised to be so competitive over here, Dick?
Yeah, okay.
No, I mean, you're obviously quite a match for the other Sierra Cosworths.
I mean, we convicts can do anything, I think.
Another satisfied man, Andy Rouse, who's just handed over to Alain Ferté.
We're going quite steady. I was actually gaining on him before he came in, so that's a good indication.
It all meant that after 40 laps, Soper led from Brancatelli and Ludwig. Alfred Hager had driven a storming drive from the pit lane to second in class. So that was the works BMW that championship leader Roberto Ravaglia would take. All set up for the run-in, not only for victory in the world's oldest race, but also the European Touring Car Championship. Over half distance and only 6 cars remain on the same lap. Soper and Dieudonné lead from Rouse and Ferte. Klaus Ludwig and Klaus Niedzwitz pushed hard for third by Johnson and Bow. 6 Ford Sierra Cosworths lead the Tourist Trophy, and we're approaching the final pit stops for the Fords. And here is that battle for third. John Bow pushing Klaus Niedzwitz as hard as he can. But the Eggenberger car using every possible tactic to stay in front, which is allowing his teammates, Soper and Dieudonné, to get away at the front. But there's still no doubting that the Australians are the quickest in the race. Third and fourth then, and both deciding to make their pit stops here at the end of lap 64. And with the field so tight at the front, it seems certain that the race will be decided on how swiftly the front runners make their stops and what problems they may encounter. Klaus Ludwig first to his pit as John Bow speeds past. Ludwig hands over to Niedzwitz. Ludwig, a double Le Mans winner. Niedzwitz, 3 times a winner in the European Championship this season. No problems in that Ford pit, but big problems for the Australians with a leaking water pump causing the engine to overheat. Johnson is already in the car, but going nowhere. Sadly, this was to be the start of a succession of pit stops for Johnson, and despite being quickest in the field, his bid for overall success was lost. Out on the track, the leader Soper speeds past. Ferte at the wheel of the Rouse Sierra in pursuit, but both with a pit stop still to make. Lying 6th, the Sierra of Guy Edwards and Grand Prix driver Jonathan Palmer. Jonathan making a rare excursion into touring car racing, although he was placed 2nd in this Tourist Trophy race 5 years ago at the wheel of a BMW. In Class 2, the championship leader, Roberto Ravaglia, has made exactly the right choice in taking over from Alfred Hager. Ravaglia in car number 56, behind his Schnitzer teammate Markus Österreich, and allowed through at Woodcote to lead the class. So Ravaglia set for maximum points, another boost to his championship prospects. Whether this Silverstone race gives him the championship itself depended upon what happened at the front of the field to Pierre Dieudonné, the only man who can catch him in the championship. And he's just taken over from race leader Steve Soper in the Eggenberger Ford. Dieudonné's championship hopes are in his own hands now. Steve Soper's stint is done, and he's given his teammate every possible chance.
So far, so good.
In the lead just then?
Yeah, when we came in, we were in the lead, yeah.
Apparently there's a problem with the Australian car.
Is there?
Yeah.
Oh.
Still down there.
I'm ever so upset.
Problems for Dick Johnson are getting worse and worse. Regular pit stops for the overheating engine, but frustratingly enough, in between times, he's still setting a blinding pace. All it will add up to, though, at the end of the day, is 21st overall. Not quite the impact on the European scene that Dick Johnson was hoping to make. So it will be a straight fight for victory between the Sierra of Alain Ferte, now leading, but with a handover to Andy Rouse still to come, and the Sierra of Pierre Dieudonné that had completed its schedule of stops. But you didn't have to be in contention to provide entertainment. Marc Duez attacks the BMW of Bello Ricci, but for the moment at least, comes off second best. Duez, partnering Will Hoy, chooses his moment rather better at the Woodcote complex. Ravaglia was comfortably in control of Class 2, running ahead of Jacques Lafitte, who'd taken over from Oliver Grouillard. Tom Walkinshaw was 10th overall, Mark Thatcher 3rd in Class 2 and 12th overall. But the interest was now to be concentrated at the front of the field as the leading Sierra comes in for its final stop. Andy Rouse taking over from Alain Ferte. Maybe a slightly longer stop than Rouse would have hoped for. He signals his intention, though, with the way he blasts out of the pits. But it's not enough to prevent Pierre Dieudonné going into the lead. Rouse had rejoined the race 7 seconds behind. But now, with 25 laps left, he's right on the Belgian's tail and hounding him through the traffic. Dieudonné, one of the most experienced men in the sport, previous winner at Spa and Bathurst, former European champion, but he must finish ahead of Rouse to keep alive his hopes of taking the title again. And the way Rouse is sitting on his tail, those prospects don't look too promising. Rouse content to hold his position through Club and Abbey. Any kind of overtaking manoeuvre is difficult among so many back markers. That's the Holden of Tom Walkinshaw in front, which the leaders will be past before Woodcote. Great to see such committed racing among the Fords, because Rouse, even though he's behind the wheel of a Sierra Cosworth, is in fact depriving Ford of a very important title indeed if he gets past Dieudonné and takes the maximum points from the Eggenberger team. If he does that, it'll gift the European Championship to Ravalia, whose path to the title has been rather more orchestrated by the BMW runners. Dieudonné first, Rouse second, the marshals' flags waving frantically as they get amongst another batch of back markers. And in the run from Copse up through Maggots, Rouse takes his chance to pass Dieudonné and into the lead of the 1988 Tourist Trophy with only a handful of laps left. Among the final retirements, the BMW of Hoy and Duez that have provided so much entertainment. But no such problems would hit Rouse, so dominant in the British Touring Car Championship this season with his 8 victories. He's won British titles before, but he's never won the Tourist Trophy, and now he's poised to do that by beating one of the best touring car fields in the world. Behind him there, Jerry Marney, 4 laps down, but heading for a good 11th place finish, ahead of the BMW of Frank Sittner and Mike Smith. Rouse leading home, Dieudonné and Soper in second, Ludwig and Nietswitz third. Only 10 seconds would cover those first 3 after 311 miles of racing. Rouse winning at an average speed of almost 104 miles an hour, partnered by his teammate from the French Championship, Alain Ferté. Ford Sierra RS 500s filling the first 6 places, Eggenberger Fords 2nd, 3rd and 4th, Armin Hahn and Harold Gross 5th for West Germany, Jonathan Palmer and Guy Edwards rounding off the Ford domination. They dominated, but Rouse's victory means ironically that Roberto Ravaglia, partnered by Alfred Hager, retains the European Championship for BMW with his 7th place, but most importantly, 1st in Class 2. And that gives Ravaglia an unbeatable lead in the championship, and it's clear what the Italian thinks of that.
Have you finished? Which position? You won a division. Thank you very much. And you finished 7th, I think, overall. But at Rouse in the race.
I'd like to take him away first.
And second, Dieudonné, 3rd, Nietswitz, 4th, Brancatelli, Schneider, 5th, Caliber Sierra, and 6th, Hahn. And 7th, you.
Can we just take him?
Very good, huh?
At this moment, Rouse gives little for European titles. He's proved his worth in one of the world's most famous races, but he may just have to prepare himself for a backlash from Soper in the last 2 British rounds, which could in turn deprive him of the British title. And those final 2 rounds at Donington Park.